Hey, Rainollon here. Today's another build showcase and it's Baruuk Prime. So let us immediately start. Let's start with Baruuk Prime first. The mods I'm using on him: Steel Charge for increased melee damage, Prime Should Fit It for knockback immunity. If you don't have the Prime version, you can use the regular one, and Fortitude for 100% knockdown immunity, which is quite nice. Fleeting Expertise for ability efficiency, and negative ability duration. It's not that big of a deal. He doesn't care about duration at all. Stretch for ability range, Umbra Intensify for ability strength, Umbra Vitality for health, Adaptation for 9% damage reduction, Reactive Storm, which gives you a huge amount of status chance and also procs a weakness status effect on enemies, which is quite good. Transient Fortitude for ability strength lowers your duration. Like I said, he doesn't care about duration at all. And Equilibrium for health and energy economy. These are the mods. For the Arcane Strike, on hit there's a 50% chance to get a 60% attack speed for melee weapons for 18 seconds. This is quite good on him. And Arcane Fury, on critical hit, 60% chance for you to get 180 melee damage to melee weapons for 18 seconds. This is also quite good. So those are the Arcanes. For the stats here, health and shield are not the greatest, but he has so much damage reduction that he doesn't care about it at all. Energy is more than enough for you to spam all these abilities. Duration, like I said, he doesn't care about it. Efficiency is more than enough. Range is more than enough. If you utilize this setup here, don't worry about the 45%. And strength is also more than enough. So it's time for me to show you the abilities. For the abilities, the first ability, I don't like it at all. I don't like the augment. I don't like how it functions. It feels like very janky and clunky. Just don't like it. I replace it with air burst. Air burst, you press it, you release a air burst onto enemies, which will crowd control them and group them up. Synergizes really well with the second ability and fourth ability. Second ability makes a lot of enemies in a large radius fall asleep. Generates your passive, which is really good, and it's overall a solid crowd control ability. And with very little duration I have, which is 13%, they fall asleep, they wake up, so I can recast my second ability, generate huge amount of passive, even more. So you can generate just passive constantly with this second ability. Third ability gives you huge amount of damage reduction. This damage reduction will decay slowly, so you have to recast this. And fourth ability, your main source of damage, gives you damage reduction. So this gives you damage reduction, the passive gives you damage reduction, the fourth ability gives you damage reduction. He generates so much DR, it's ridiculous. I think he's the closest to immortality of all Warframes. With adaptation, fourth ability, third ability, and passive, it's like around 97 point something damage reduction. He can survive some shots that no Warframe can. That's how tanky he is. And also his fourth ability gives you the huge amount of status chance. So I think I'm done explaining everything here. The passive I'm going to explain in-game. It's much easier. But yeah, I'm done here. Time for me to show you the Exalted Weapon mods. And it's Desert Wind Prime time. So let's start with the first setup. The mods on the first setup is the Exposure setup. Given a Steel for critical chance and critical damage. Berserker's Fury for attack speed. Prime Fever Strike for Toxin. North Wind for cold. Cold and Toxin give you viral. Molten Impact for heat. Blood Rush and Weeping Wound finally work. We're going to generate combo counter at 12x. That's 440% critical chance and 440% status chance, which is amazing. And Condition Overload finally works on the waves. 80% melee damage per status type affecting a target. This is going to help you a ton for single target DPSing. The Arcane Melee Exposure. It's the Exposure setup, so it makes a ton of sense. On ability cast, you gain 60% corrosion damage on melee strikes for 25 seconds. Stacks up all the way up to 240%. This is a ton of increased damage, and it's quite nice. So that's the Exposure setup. Now let's go for the Affliction setup. The mods for the Affliction. The only thing that changed here is I'm not using North Wind. I'm using Galen as Elementalist for status damage and status chance. And I also removed Molten Impact for Organ Shatter for critical damage. Only Toxin. Melee Affliction, the Arcane. Enemies affected by status effect gain 6 additional stacks when and they are knocked down or flung by a melee attack. Baruuk does knock them down. Not everything can be knocked down or flung. but the most common enemies will, and they will die from the dot. Or the initial hit will kill them, or the dot will kill them. It's quite nice. And the last one, which is the bugged one right now, is the influence setup. I'm not using Toxin, the Prime Fever Strike. I'm using Shocking Touch for electricity. I did remove Organ Shatter for Voltaic Strike for electricity sessions. This is a electricity setup for melee influence. On a electricity status effect, there's a 20% chance for the elemental status effect to apply to every enemy in a 20 meter radius for 18 seconds. Sadly, it's bugged right now and it doesn't work properly. So we are just going to wait for a hotfix to fix this. But yeah, once this works, it's going to be quite nice on Baruuk. So this is a mega clear setup, this is a dot setup, and this is a burst setup. They're all quite interesting and nice. You can switch between them, 3 forma setup, and all of these builds work. So that's it. That's the Desert Wind Prime builds. And I think it's time for me to show you these shards. So let's go. For the shards, I will highly recommend for you to go if you're filthy rich. 5 purple shards for melee critical damage. And also remove stretch for flow to have over 500 energy, which will double the melee critical damage from the purple shards. If you don't have the purple shards and you want to use something here, 1 yellow shard for cast speed and 4 red shard for melee critical damage. That's something that is also good. So yeah, those are the shard setups I will highly recommend for you to go. And yeah, I think it's time for me to show you Baruuk in game. So let's start. And we are finally in game. So now I'm going to show you my Baruuk. This is up against the corrupted enemies at the Void. Steel Path, of course. I'm going to use my third ability for DR. Use my first ability to group them up. Press my second ability. And I generate so much my passive. So what is his passive? You can see at bottom right, the restrain meter. You see how I'm losing the white bar when I use my abilities. So that's a good thing. That makes it that I'm allowed to use my fourth ability. And also the less bar you have on the restrain, what happens is you have a higher DR, which is damage reduction. So I have adaptation for DR, fourth ability for DR, third ability for DR, and his passive for DR. And as you can see, the enemies are not doing any damage. They're hitting me for like 2 shield damage and like 1 shield damage. It's really hard for you to die. I group them up with the air burst and then left click. Yep, these guys won't survive. I think this is the influence setup. I want to show the influence setup how it doesn't work at all. I'm proccing so many electricity and influence isn't proccing at all. Nope, not even once. Not even once. The moment they fix this, it's going to be nicer, of course. The clear is going to be much nicer. And there we go. Group them up. Press second ability. And I'm forever in my fourth ability. It's kind of hard for me to lose my restrain meter. Really good crowd control ability. Recast your third ability. Up 1 million damage right there. Very simple. The combo I like on Baruuk the most is holding right click and then E. Then he like does some kicks. That's also like a really good way to DPS. Oh, these guys have no chance. Imagine if influence worked. Oh, there you go, influence worked right there. Finally, it did work. It's so bugged, it's ridiculous. Influence worked once. Look how many electricity proc I'm shooting out. How did influence work? I kinda want to know. What's the secrets behind the influence bug? Damn it, dude. Make it work, please. The affliction setup is also good. So what it does is the waves knock enemies down and flung them, which is amazing. And you're going to proc so much toxin procs, and it's like a really good dot build. And of course the exposure build is also good. I can easily recast my third ability to get the corrosion damage from exposure. My first ability, my first ability, my first ability, my second ability, you know, you can easily generate it and have it forever. It's kinda really hard for you to die. You can do this all day. You can spend like 2 hours in a mission and nothing is going to kill you. Maybe Acolyte can kill you, or if you're AFK. But it's kinda hard for you to die for a Baruuk player. He isn't designed for every type of game mode, of course, and he's mostly a solo Warframe. A lot of Warframes wouldn't allow him to generate restrain, and he gets out-meta. That's how I'm gonna call it, out-meta. Out-meta, or however you're going to say it, I don't think that's not the right word. A lot of Warframes generate their power much quicker and don't need a meter to generate. Don't need enemies around for you to group them up and utilize, you know, all the other stuff. But he's like very straightforward. There we go, War. War is dead. Again, poor guy. I want the Acolyte to spawn. Oof. Thank God he can use Blood Rush and Weeping Wounds. Holy. Took them. Like, Baruuk came out, I think, Plains of Eidolon, right? Plains of Eidolon. Wasn't he like one of the first Warframes in Plains of Eidolon, if I'm correct? So that's like 8 years ago or 9 years ago. So freaking old. He's old. And that's how long it took them to implement Blood Rush and Weeping Wounds. And condition and yeah, condition overload. There you go. And the Acolyte also despawned. It'll be quite powerful if his third ability was a 100% uptime and you don't lose it. Because you lose it, you lose the DR, so you cannot have to recast it, which is fine. You can't have everything perfect, you know. As you can see, it's just like overkill. Orange and red crits, quite simply annihilating enemies. This is also against level 142. I did test this against the Tekrot enemies, which are level 180, and Skuldra enemies at Warframe 999. They also die in like 1 or 2 waves. You just have to wait for the influence fix for this setup to work. Oof. Yep, I think I've shown the build enough. Time for me to extract, and I'll be right back. And that's Baruuk Prime. He's good. I think the Blood Rush VP Mood Condition Overload changes kind of made him better. Influence, exposure, affliction, all of that is good. There's so many ways you can like utilize him now, build him. It's nice. It's just nice. I would highly recommend the build. It's very straightforward, very cheap-ish. The build for the Desert Winds. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the build. Thank you everybody for watching. Leave a like, sub, and see you all next time. Thank you. Goodbye.